Welcome back. The Biden administration's defense budget request is $715 billion. In constant dollars, that's more than the Pentagon spent during the military buildup of the 1980s, but the size and the capability of the force is far less today. Major General Arnold Punaro, U.S. Marine Corps retired CEO of the Punaro Group. He's chairman of the board of the National Defense Industrial Association and a member of the Defense Business Board, and he's author of the new book, The Ever-Shrinking Fighting Force. Arnold, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. You wrote your own book blurb so eloquently on LinkedIn yesterday. You wrote this: in constant dollars, DOD's spending more than it did at the peak of the Reagan buildup for a substantially smaller and in some cases less capable fighting force. How did we get here, Arnold?
Well, Francis, always a privilege to join you on this wonderful program. And I would say, as we come out of Afghanistan after 20 years, we're at a serious inflection point for our national security. During the last 20 years, China has built up their military capability, both in terms of quantity, but also in quality, and particularly made advances in some of the key technological areas that are going to be the basis of future conflict. So we've got to focus here in the Pentagon and the Congress, not on how much we spend, but what we get for what we spend. As you mentioned, and as I outlined in my new book, The Ever-Shrinking Fighting Force, we're spending more in constant dollars than the peak of the Reagan buildup that many considered the golden age for defense. The Biden budget is larger than the largest Trump budget, and yet we have 1 million fewer active duty military on the job. We have 35 to 40% fewer fighting units, whether it's Army divisions and brigade, Navy battle force ships, Air Force fighter squadrons, and tactical fighter inventory. So we just are not getting the bang for the buck we should for the dollars we spend. And I hate to say it, the Chinese are getting more for their yuan than we're getting for the US dollar. So we've got to make some fundamental reforms and changes, and that's what my new book is all about.
The contrast, Arnold, is striking to me. Congresswoman Luria, the vice chair of the HASC, was on the program a couple of weeks ago and reminded me that in the peak of the buildup, the Navy had 600 ships in its fleet, and we're at about 300 today, and thinking about getting to 355 in 20 years. How do we get that balance back that you're referring to, Arnold, about getting best value for the dollars that we're spending, not even thinking about quantity and power, just how do we get that balance back?
Well, she's spot on, Francis. I'm glad you brought that up because, for example, in the Navy, the amount of money we're spending on Navy ships has gone up 70%, but the number of ships we are buying for those dollars has gone down 70%. So there are three major areas where we've got to make significant changes in the Congress and the Pentagon to get the output that we need so that we are better, faster, and cheaper than China, our pacing threat and major adversary. One is we've got to reduce DOD's massive overhead, which has gone from 5% to a little under 20% of the budget. It's over $350 billion a year, 1 million people working in the back office and headquarters. And we all know that future conflict is going to be won by warfighters, not by people in the back office. We've also got to change the DOD acquisition system. We spend over $400 billion a year on goods and services, supplies and equipment. And about all you can say politely about the outcome or the output is spend more, take longer, get less. Many people have labored at this. Frank Kendall, Ash Carter, Ellen Ward have done yeoman's work to try to improve it, but it's not how far we've come, it's how far we need to go. And we're a long way off from basically getting the bang for the buck in the acquisition area. And Congress has got to reform the way it does business. They have three overlapping and duplicative processes: the budget resolution, authorizations, and appropriation. It's totally broken. They never get their work done on time. We haven't had a full year appropriations bills on time on 1 October for 25 years. We've started the last 20 years with continuing resolutions. There's no way we're going to keep pace with China and get the advances we need if we don't make some of these fundamental changes. Again, my book has got 27 chapters and 500 pages, and I outline specifically in many different areas what we need to change to basically get a better outcome than we're getting today.
And I apologize in advance. I went through this book. There's no possible way I can do it justice in the amount of time that you and I have. We've talked about that back office system on a number of occasions, Arnold. The administration is undertaking a look at the same kinds of reform efforts that previous administrations have looked at. How would you like to see them look at that back office differently than previous secretaries of defense have?
I mean, I think they have to say, I think they need to basically understand the compelling timing threat that we have. The good news is there's bipartisan recognition in the Congress that China is the pacing threat. The administration recognizes it as well. And so I think it gives everybody, they feel the pressure and feel the heat to basically get more bang for the buck with the dollars we spend. And frankly, they've got to take this on. Mark Esper sort of got started with David Norquist, looking at the 28 defense agencies that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. The Defense Logistics Agency does more business with the Department of Defense than does Lockheed Martin, the largest contractor, and yet they don't use commercial best practices in the way they go about doing their business. If you go on one of the online retailers as a private citizen, you'll find out, you know, do they have the product you want, how much it's going to cost, when you're going to get it. If you're the tank turret mechanic repairman in the Army and you order a part, you don't know if DLA has it, you don't know when you're going to get it, and you don't know how much it costs. So bringing proven world-class business practices into the Department of Defense, reducing the management layers, reducing the hundreds of thousands of people that work in these areas. We also have over 300,000 of our most expensive and most valuable troops, active duty military, serving in inherently non-governmental jobs. So we need to get them out of the rear with the gear and put them back at the tip of the spear.
Arnold, nobody knows this stuff better than you do. It's great. I'm grateful to have you on the program this and every time you're here. Thank you, my friend.
You're quite welcome.